Hello, I'm Steve White, and welcome to another edition of Subspace Brief Facts. Today we'll be diving into Deep Fear, a 1998 survival horror game for the Sega Saturn from Sega's AM7 team. While Deep Fear never received a North American release, the rest of the world received it about half a year after Resident Evil 2 hit the market. And that timing really makes sense. Deep Fear is ostensibly a response to Capcom's vaunted survival horror series, which was mostly absent from the Sega Saturn at that point in time. And, it's not actually a bad response. It maintains Resident Evil's core mechanics, addresses some of its more damning flaws, and looks surprisingly good while doing it. At least for a Saturn game. Despite its strengths, though, it lacks two key components which are absolute essentials for survival horror games. Survival and horror. Deep Fear is a laughably easy and completely unhorrific game. But, hey, all that aside, it ain't half bad. Deep Fear's story is complete nonsense, but that's not really a strike against it. Like all late 90s survival horror games, it's little more than a string of ill-conceived vignettes and plot twists designed to take you from one scare to the next. The player assumes the role of John Mayer, that's Mayer with an O, an ex-Navy SEAL who has joined the ERS, a civilian rescue service. For unexplained reasons, Mayer is permanently stationed on an underwater research facility called the Big Table, where we are left to assume he rescues people as he is needed to do so. Things start going horribly awry on the Big Table when a Navy submarine crashes into a classified sector of the base, and Mayer and his charming but regrettably named sidekick, Mookie, are asked to rescue the survivors. It isn't long before Mayer and Mookie discover that the crew is slowly turning into monsters, and then, well, from there it devolves into a strange hodgepodge of tropes, cliches, and outright weirdness.
40 years ago, as an experiment, Anthony
There are
was shot
space
up into
monkeys.
space and returned to Earth. He was in a near-death state. It was
A military cover-up,
Cuts me off from my dreams by locking me up in this ocean floor prison.
One mistake.
Oh, one of the submarine missiles I launched hit a passenger ship.
a mysterious researcher who looks suspiciously like Mayer's dead wife for no reason whatsoever,
Stella. It can't be.
an overly effeminate Frenchman with a crush on Mayer,
How? The big gym is damaged.
There's a tunnel that leads to the big table.
Okay, let's go.
Oh, John, you're a real man.
The last lever wouldn't budge.
an incomprehensibly
But you're back
stupid
and I'll
marine
just
biologist who also has a crush on Mayer,
All right, John. We have to hurry and set the dolphins free.
Wait, Sharon.
a dog named Rambo, a Japanese businessman,
Here.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I can't go back to my company.
and last but
I found
certainly
this
not
out in one of the
least,
creatures.
intergalactic space bacteria, which has the power to selectively turn people into seraphim or lobster people, as the plot dictates. All that is to say, it's basically the Abyss meets Resident Evil meets a sea of anime cliches on a sea base. It's derivative schlock at best, but it's bolstered by frequent CG cutscenes. To modernize, these cutscenes probably seem wholly unimpressive, but by 1998 Sega Saturn standards, believe me, they are quite well rendered.
Okay.
It's, just a shame that the voice acting makes every possible effort to shoot them in the foot.
Chief!
What's going on?
April Fools! Did you forget it's April Fool's Day?
You know, we don't have time for these fun and games.
Sorry, Chief. The mood around
But
the
crappy
big
voice
table
acting
has
was
been
par
kinda
for the
stuffy
course
lately.
back then.
So,
In fact,
I had
if
to
you do
play a
some
joke
digging,
before
you can
going
even
crazy.
find a GameSpot
What do
review
you mean?
praising the game's voice
Stuffy.
acting.
You were
Everything's
just
relative, I
transferred here
guess.
A week ago, so you may not have noticed, but
A campy but enjoyable plot can't hold up a game on its own, though. Oh no. So thankfully, Deep Fear's core gameplay is fairly solid. The game uses vintage Resident Evil-style tank controls. That is to say, Holding up on the control pad always moves your character forward, and holding back on the control pad always moves your character backwards. Left and right will always turn your character relative to their position on the screen. Presumptively, this scheme was employed because, like Resident Evil, Deep Fear utilizes static camera angles and pre-rendered backgrounds. Standard survival horror fare. While Deep Fear lacks some of the advanced movement mechanics that Resident Evil would employ in later installments, Mayer seems to move in turn with a little more grace than his Resident Evil protagonist counterparts. He's got a useful little backward leap, and he can even move and shoot at the same time. There's rarely a practical use for this. You'll be hard-pressed to find a situation where moving towards an enemy and shooting would be in any way helpful, but it's definitely a forward-thinking change. Additionally, the game supports analog movement if you've got the Saturn 3D pad. So, while Deep Fear looks and plays a lot like Resident Evil, it has some tweaks and revisions that seem to have been developed in response to complaints commonly levied against Capcom's franchise. Ammo is everywhere. It's virtually unlimited. Scratch that, it's actually unlimited. Mayer can fully replenish each and every weapon in his possession in any storage room, and he is never far from a storage room. Deep Fear affords the player unlimited saves as well, eschewing the limited ink ribbon system of Resident Evil and its ilk. While these could be viewed as nice little courtesies to the player, taken together, they have the net effect of removing any actual sense of fear or tension from the game, particularly when all enemies tend to announce themselves loudly every time you enter a room. Believe me, jump scares are one thing Deep Fear does not do well. Additionally, there are more than a few locations in the game which appear to dish out unlimited curative items. It's easy to die in Deep Fear, but with a save point and an armory around every corner, you'll never get stuck in any one spot for too long. Just reload your massively overpowered shotgun and be on your way. Deep Fear attempts to compensate for this lack of tension with its central gimmick: cutting off your oxygen supply. At nearly every step, something is damaging the big table's ability to generate breathable air. Your oxygen meter is constantly ticking downward. Theoretically, this should add some urgency to Mayer's quest. However, it doesn't. There's an in-game map which makes exploration a breeze, with or without air. There are oxygen grenades which replenish a room's air supply, and to top it off, less than 2 hours into the game, you'll find a rebreather, which you can use to replenish oxygen at nearly every save point. Not once did I feel rushed, intimidated, or pressured by Deep Fear's oxygen mechanic. And really, the complete lack of consequence or pressure to your action is the biggest strike against Deep Fear. It's a decent looking, decent playing, and generally enjoyable and competent game. But in addressing the survival horror genre's most common criticisms and critiques, it effectively ceases to be a survival horror game. Its narrative and atmosphere simply can't overcome its lack of challenge. With a few tweaks, Deep Fear might have been a classic. Its setting alone makes you think about how scary it could have been.
I asked Dubois.
It's a shame it never got a sequel. The world could have used some more
There's
Dubois.
no problem with my CFOX system. No accident should have occurred. Ooh!
We can't get.
Until next time, this is Steve White for Subspace Briefcase, signing off. Rest in peace, Mookie.